Hi there, Karen Flaherty here from Living by Human Design. Hope you're doing well today. Today we're going to be talking about the gate 20, which is the gate of contemplation or speaking in the moment. So let's see how that affects your week. So this week we start with the sun in gate 20. It started on Sunday, May 21st. It goes until May 27th, right after midnight. And the earth is in gate 34, which is multitasking. So together we have this gate 20, which comes off the throat and it connects into the 34, which goes into the sacral. And we have the entire channel of charisma. And so this makes, this is the typical way that we create manifesting generators in human design. It's the 2034 connection is what does that. It's a combination of being able to speak in the moment and being able to multitask. And that's what makes the manifesting generator so unique and on their own in a way, because they're people who can speak a lot, who have the energy to the throat so that they can speak a lot and clearly and vociferously and get people's attention, and it's very attractive to people. So anyway, everybody's going to have this energy this week, which is the 2034, and it is the channel of charisma. And so that connects the throat down to the sacral. And then in addition, we have that still the channel of mutation, the 360, going down to the root. So we'll have all three of these defined at the beginning of the week. And then by Friday, Jupiter is moving into the gate 27. So that'll go away. The 27 is here already. And what goes away is the 3, which was connecting up the root. So the root definition will go away for everybody by Friday. So this gate 20 is also called metamorphosis or contemplation. It's really about changing the mood of wherever you are by speaking into it and basically sometimes filling the void, but sometimes just blurting something out that comes to mind, and it almost doesn't have much of a filter. It usually just comes right out, and usually, as long as you're conscious, aware, somewhat evolved, the things that come out will be helpful to people. That's the idea. When you're not so conscious or you're not so aware of what's going on, they may come out a little strange or blunt or things that are not what you would have said if you had the choice. So it can go either way. And they say recognition and awareness in the now, which transforms understanding into right action. So that's the purpose of it, is to have some, it's like a light bulb goes off. You have this realization in the moment. You're in a big meeting and you just kind of blurt something out, and everybody goes, "Oh my God, that's amazing! Where did that come from? Or how did you come up with that?" And you'd be like, "Well, you could say, I've been thinking about this for a while." The truth is, it just came in, you blurted it out, and it happened to be the right thing to say at the right time. So this is why we call it, kind of speaking in the moment. In the incarnation crosses this week are the cross of the sleeping phoenix, the cross of now, and the cross of duality. And in quantum human design, we call this gate patience. In the gate 34, we've got multitasking and power. It's the power of the great, or just power in the original I Ching, because it's very much about multitasking, and that's a power that allows for, it's a skill, let's call it that, or a way of doing things that just allows you to get a lot more done in a certain amount of time than other people do. And this is why we associate it with manifesting generators. Now, any energy type can have this gate 34 by itself. If you have the 20 and the 34, then you definitely are a manifesting generator, and you would have the sacral energy, so you're not a manifester by definition. But you can also have the 34 as a manifester, as a generator, as a projector, and even as a reflector. So power is only great when its display or use serves the common good. So that's the idea of this power, is that it should be serving the common good. It's really not supposed to be used against others, but it certainly can be. In the Gene Keys, force is the shadow, strength is the gift, and majesty is the CD. And in quantum human design, we call it the gate of power. So this graphic actually is a little hard to see, but in the graphic it says about the Gene Key 20 magic, the art of doing nothing outside your own nature. And really this can be about anything in any gate, any piece of human design, and yet it's specific to this Gene Key 20 or the gate of presence or the CD as presence. The highest version of it is just presence. It's just being. It's just doing what is in your own nature, speaking in the moment, doing what comes naturally, feeling all the feelings, and doing being in the flow, basically. And that can be magic, right? It can have a magical effect on your life. So the shadow here is superficiality. The gift is self-assurance, and the CD is presence. And for the shadow side, that superficiality on the repressive side or the more fearful side, you can seem absent. Somebody who really is not willing to speak in the moment, just doesn't want to speak in the moment. And on the reactive side, where somebody might be angry or show themselves as more full of anger, on the reactive side, they would seem more hectic, right? Where there might be lots of things coming out all the time, none of which are serving them, none of which are serving the people around them, but it lends itself to feeling hectic. So the gift is self-assurance, and the what the self-assurance is being able to speak in the moment, having that gate 20 or Gene Key 20, being able to speak in the moment, not or let me put it this way, trusting. That's what self-assurance is. Trusting that what comes out will help people around you, will be good for you and the people around you, and will generally help the common good. That's what the self-assurance is. And then the CD is presence, when we get to such a state that we don't even have to think about it. We don't have to worry that we're trusting or not, because we always are. He also says that the mind prevents us from feeling one with life. So it's our mind that gets in the way. This, as you can see, this Gene Key or Gate 20 comes right off the throat. It is not about the mind. It is not about having the thoughts in the mind that would either filter or stop you from saying it or add to it, in fact. But just being able to speak in the moment is what this is about. And he also says your self-assurance is directly equivalent to your ability to escape being a victim of your mind. So again, having that self-assurance and trust, as opposed to thinking it through, going through the pros and cons, and basically talking yourself out of anything that you might have said. So it's really allowing for the flow and allowing yourself to say the things that come through, that are appropriate to come through and be said in the moment. So we have a number of people who were born during this time. Now, just remember, every single one of them is a manifesting generator, right? Every one of them has the gate 20 and gate 34. And so they're all manifesting generators. They all got a lot done. They all did a lot in their lifetimes, and they were usually pretty good at it, and were able to develop their skills and talents in a way that really was helped by the energy that they had, as well as the voice that they had, right? The voice that could be heard very easily. So even though, for example, Miles Davis, who we talked about last year, didn't use his voice necessarily. He sang sometimes, but usually he was playing the instruments that he played in his band, especially the saxophone and the trumpet. He pursued it in a way that was very much a manifesting generator and very much busy, always doing multiple things, multiple records, multiple gigs, just very, very busy lifetime. Same with somebody like a Stevie Nicks or like John Wayne, Ralph Waldo Emerson. It just prolific and proficient and efficient in the way that they produced the materials they produced, which live on and on. So funnily enough, I've gotten a few comments about from people saying, "Oh, why do you always do celebrities?" Well, first of all, it's easy to find their information and find enough biography about them easily enough that I can talk about them. And so, because I don't know these people personally. But on the other hand, why always do celebrities? And so this week I've gone in a little different direction, and we're going to be talking about Ted Kaczynski, who was known as the Unabomber. Now he is a celebrity for a different reason, but not for good reasons, right? So, but let's take a look at his chart. The reason I want to talk about it is because you can see that he was the archetypical manifesting generator. He was born on May 22nd, 1942 in Chicago, Illinois. He's a manifesting generator, one of the 1-3 profile. He's a right angle across the sleeping phoenix. So that could be anybody, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that he had to take the path he took. But in human design, what happens is this is the nature, his looking at his chart, this is the nature that he was born with. The nurturing part was what changed and created a dynamic where that manifesting generator was used for things that weren't, socially acceptable. Even though he has 2 tribal channels and 1 so he's got 2. I'll just show he's got 2 tribal channels here, the 59-6 and the 40-37, and then he has the 34-20, which is a very individual channel, and then he has the 63-4, which is a collective channel. So given this, I mean, if I was just looking at his chart, I would say, oh, he's a pretty balanced person. And funnily enough, that's what the FBI found as well. He was somebody who got, very upset with the way the environment was going and the way the industrial technology and its future was going. That's the name of his manifesto. And he wrote about it and then tried to change what was going on by sending bombs in the mail. And so it wasn't obviously a very sociable way to do things or to change things. It did result in 3 deaths and 23 people who were injured as a result. But he was known as the Unabomber. The span of his crimes went from 1978 to 1995. But in the meantime, or earlier in his life, he was a brilliant mathematician. His PhD thesis was well regarded by his professors and colleagues. One of them said that probably only 10 or 12 people in the country could have understood what he wrote in his thesis. And he was a professor for a while, or at least an assistant professor. He got to assistant professor at Berkeley. And but basically, he was an anarchist and a terrorist, domestic terrorist by the end of his life, or by the later on in his life. And he was somebody who he is in jail now. He pled guilty to the murders and bombing and basically the mail fraud that occurred because he was sending bombs in the mail. And he went to jail, and he's serving 8 consecutive lifetime prison terms with no prospect of parole. He's now in North Carolina because he's now turned 81 and is having some health issues. But he, just from looking at this chart, I don't see anything unusual. Let's put it that way. He did have this channel of logic. He did have an IQ of 167, so he was definitely on the genius scale. But the genius can go to madness, and he did have 2 gates coming off here: 64, which is the gate of confusion; 63 is the gate of doubt, connected to the 4, which is all about possible answers. And so, had a brilliant mind. He did have the voice, but he didn't have a lot of friends. He was someone who was seen to be bright early on, and so he skipped a few grades. And he considered that one of the turning points for him, because when he was I think he was a sophomore, they moved him up to be a junior, and he basically lost all his friends, and then he was bullied. So as somebody who was quite tall and a big guy and a manifesting generator, that didn't sit so well with him. And he did go to Harvard by the time he was 16 years old, and he just wasn't, he was young, right? He wasn't really ready for that. And he was in what they now call mind control mind control experiment that it went on for 3 years, over 200 hours, where he's basically berated for the things he wrote in an essay. Now, this was, totally voluntary, and he probably got paid for it, and he was willing to do this voluntarily, but it was a very brutal and violent, according to the people who created it, experiment. And so it was quite. Ed Kaczynski himself said that it had no bearing on what happened later in his life, but I think that would still be a question mark. So there are two different emotional channels, but both are very mild. And I would not expect that either one of them would have led to mental illness. His family tried to say that perhaps he was mentally ill, but it's thought that they were probably saying that to help him not get the death penalty when he was arrested and tried. But he was never diagnosed with anything. So he had 3 centers open: the open spleen, the open G center, and the open root center. So he would have felt pressure from others around him, definitely. He would have been perhaps fearless or fearful. Either it could go either way with the completely open spleen. And basically had a relatively open G center also, just the 46 coming off that, which is the love of the flesh, but also persistence and determination. And probably makes sense that he would have been comfortable in one place or not. For example, he did not like the University of Michigan when he was there. He did his master's and PhD dissertation there and became an assistant professor there, but then moved on to Berkeley. He was not happy at Michigan. So it just, there were places that he preferred and places that he didn't. I just noticed that he had the gate 23 a few times, once in his moon, unconscious, and then also here in Mars, which is about Mars's fighter, right? And also here in his Saturn, which is where he would learn his lessons. So it's just interesting that the 23, which is all about assimilation and being able to speak and talk to people about your ideas, he had a few times in his chart. He also did have the 19, which is sensitivity. So he was if you don't know about the manifesto that he wrote, it was all about the environment and socialism and the technology that he felt was basically encroaching on the environment and taking away nature, taking away our freedoms, and taking away some of the natural environment that he was enjoying while he was in his cabin in Montana. So that's the chart for Ted Kaczynski. As you can see, there's really nothing to indicate, nothing I can see to indicate that he would have taken that path. But so it wasn't in the nature side. I would say it was in the nurture side with the brilliance that he had, the very early orientation he had toward very adult environments, shyness that he felt as a result of being put into situations before he was actually ready for them. This week, just be aware of what you might say in the moment. See what you might say as you're in a meeting or a party or with a group of people, and see what might come out of your mouth unexpectedly. Or other people's mouths unexpectedly. So watch for that. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Be well.